if you have been seeking an opportunity to slow down and to have a heart-centered conversation, then you're in luck, because what you are seeking is also seeking you. And this is me, aka you, saying to you, this podcast that I recorded back when I was in Puerto Viejo, Costa Rica, with one of the I love this G.K. Chesterton quote that Ian always tells me about. He says, one of the great things about miracles is that they actually happen. And every time I spend time with Julian, the man that I recorded, magic starts to happen. I just feel like I'm in the right place at the right time, and he's saying the right things. And at this time in my life, when I was back in Puerto Viejo, I had just come off of an experience for like 5-6 weeks in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, and it was fast paced, and it was like full of foreigners and tourists. There wasn't really a lot of culture because it was just people coming in and out of Santa Teresa, and I felt like I was really in a rush, and I felt like I didn't do a very good job of listening to myself and my intuition and slowing myself down. I felt like I was almost, Epictetus said, as soon as you seek validation from the external, from the outside world, then you've already compromised your integrity. And in many ways, when I was in Santa Teresa, I was seeking that external validation. I was compromising my integrity. And when I landed in Puerto Viejo, I felt anchored, and I had an opportunity to really slow down. And one of the big reasons I was able to do that was because I met Julian. So if you are looking for somebody or something to give you permission to live your life from your heart and to slow down and to ask yourself the questions that truly matter, because Julian was really challenging my thinking when I was thinking business, productivity, industry. He was asking me questions, and he started to talk about his philosophy of quality of life and peace of mind, and maybe rethinking the, as he put it, the currency that we quantify our life by, and instead start to think of maybe some of the more qualitative aspects of our life that give us meaning and give us fulfillment and then make us really feel alive. And that's what this conversation is about. So I highly recommend it. He is a fitness professional. He was running a TEDx style event. I didn't realize how big of an inspiration that he was for my life. When I think about going to Guatemala afterwards and experiencing Impact, which was an in-person TEDx style event, I didn't realize that a lot of those roots came obviously from Speaker Slam, some of my past history, but really Julian inspired me with this Mindshare event that I experienced with him, which we get into in this podcast. But just overall, just like really delighted that I listen to the show and that I'm able to share it with you. I highly recommend you take an opportunity to listen, share it with a friend that's looking for that same feeling of maybe rethinking what matters to me right now, or rethinking the way I'm living my life. I love this episode. Thank you so much, Julian, for doing this with me. And for those of you that are tuning into the podcast, I love you from Bradford, Canada, and looking forward to hearing what you think, and for you to share it with a friend that you love and that you also want to have the opportunity to enter their heart space. Enjoy the show. Before we jump into like even how we know each other and some of the ideas around community and things like that, is there, if you were to describe like a life philosophy or like philosophy in general on where you, like how you live your life from, like I live my life from this perspective, because like as an example, the mentor that I probably got the most guidance from, like outside of my parents, was a guy named Jim Rohn. I don't know if you've ever heard of Jim. Yeah, so he's like they called him the foremost business philosopher. So it was like business and philosophy and combining the two. And one of the things he said that really resonated with me is like, you're like a boat, and the wind of life will blow on everyone, and where you end up has less to do with the wind, because it's going to blow on everyone the same. It has more to do with the set of your sail, right? So he said philosophy, the way you look at the world, the way you see the world, determines where you end up. And so you described like philosophy as improving your philosophy is setting a better sail. So our goal should be to refine our philosophy, to refine the way we look at the world so that we end up where we want to go. So I'm just wondering, from like kind of like a first principles perspective of the way you look at the world, what kind of influences do you think you have? Is there like Eastern philosophy in there? Maybe your parents taught you something, maybe, you know, you sought out a specific mentor that really inspired you and this is the way I kind of look at the world, or how do you, like, where are you coming from?
Well, when you ask that, two acronyms come into play, three probably. Two of them are actually from my dad. He always wants to help us achieve a certain level of peace of mind, POM.
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind, for himself and for other people. And QOL, quality of life.
POM and QOL.
Yeah, those are the first two.
Peace of mind, quality of life.
Yes, and then the structure of, let's say, a day, or probably a day is PERMA V from positive psychology. PERMA V is an acronym that Martin Seligman has come up with, and obviously his peers. It's kind of a framework and model to how you carry yourself forward. So every day, try to experience P for positive emotion, E for engagement, R for relationships, positive relationships, M for meaning, A for accomplishment / attainment or achievement, and then V is for vitality. So those are what I use it, and how I've interpreted it is like basically a checklist for the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm approaching it that way in terms of how to life.
Yeah.
And then the destination points would be the quality of life, achieving that in as many moments as possible, and then a peace of mind. And those two endpoints serve as maybe like an endpoint not only for myself or for other people. So when I engage with someone, hoping that I leave you with a heightened quality of this life experience, and the peace of mind is like that we found some closure over why we came together.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's what first came to mind.
Well, yeah, as just kind of contributing to that thought, I think from my experience with you, every interaction I've seen you go into, you contribute that. So thanks, man. Thanks for that, dude. I appreciate it. So it's peace of mind, so POM, quality of life, QOL, and then it's PERMA V.
Yeah, PERMA V.
PERMA V.
Yeah.
Can you repeat PERMA V just one more time? Like the
positive emotion, engagement, relationships or positive relationships, meaning, accomplishment / achievement, and vitality.
Which one do you think you do best in, or you thrive most in?
Vitality, for sure.
I like how it's hooked onto the end as like almost like something you could forget, but it's like PERMA V, but the V is like PERMA very V. Distinct. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes people use interchangeably H, so they just call it PERMA.
Yeah.
With an H at the end, and that's for health. But I really like vitality. It's a word that
the V is more distinct. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely resonate a lot with vitality. It's almost like I always try to find the intersection between fitness, health, and wellness. And I thought to myself, vitality. Like that is what those three ultimately want to find, is this level of energy, this heightened level of energy that is beyond what you need and also overflows, so that overflow can serve others. So if you harness your own vitality and are able to preserve it, hone it, share it, shape it, you get to a point where that energy in excess is abundance for others and for the things around you.
Yeah.
And so to make vitality the common denominator currency of everything that we do has been a real big shift for me over the last 2 years. Vitality.
Nice. I'm going to bring the mic closer to us because we're in Puerto Viejo, Costa Rica, for anyone that's tuning in here. And I think that's I'm going to come back to vitality, park that really briefly. Okay. But you might hear some birds in the background. I don't know what that is. That like a cicada or something, like a cricket? It's It's like white noise at this point.
It's so nice. Easy to sleep too.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's like
Yeah.
real ASMR.
But the rain's been on and off all day. I know you got caught in the rain on the bike ride here. But yeah, just to kind of like arrive in the space together. That was one thing. So just really brief context. The reason I know Julian is because it was my first day in Puerto Viejo, and I was just walking around the town. It's the second time I've ever been here. So I was kind of exploring with my roommate, Ian. And we were just like exploratory mode. We had no expectations of what was going to happen. I saw a juice store and I walked in, didn't buy anything, but I met Susan, and I mentally made the note to come back and buy something for her because she was really nice. So the next day, the first thing I did was I went and bought a juice. And as I was like taste testing the juice, she kind of was like, rushing. And I was like, you look like you're in a rush. What's going on? And she's like, oh, I'm making these juices for this event that I'm going to. It's like a TED Talk style event that's happening. If you want to come, feel free. And I was like thinking about my plans. And I had a plan for the day, but I was like, you know what? That sounds cool. It's only my second day in Puerto Viejo. I'm sure I'll meet a bunch of cool people. And I did. Yeah. And so she let me try some of the juices and said, show up at 2. And so I did. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was well facilitated. And I've spent the last few years learning about communication and public speaking and facilitation. And you just like the second you took the front of the room, it made me feel comfortable. You made me feel engaged, and you made me feel like I was like welcome in a sense. Like it's like I wasn't forgotten in a way, because like it's easy to get in your head about like, you know, why am I even here? Am I going to get anything from this? But as soon as I was actually engaged in the presentation, like those thoughts that were up here in the metaphysical world that doesn't actually exist in reality, it's just my thoughts, they kind of dissipated, and I was able to pay attention. And so in terms of arriving in the space, you know, they said Julian's from Toronto, and I was like, let's go Toronto, let's go Toronto. And then you started doing,
that felt so good.
Yeah.
Loved it. That
Good,
was
man.
so good.
Yo, good, man. I've met so many people on this trip from Toronto. Like just we have, I guess it's the disposable income, but also the writing was on the wall in the fall that it was going to turn into a crapshoot. So we kind of bounced.
Also, the multiculturalism in Toronto transfers over to Puerto Viejo, and the nature of this place. For some reason, I mean, this is the main export here is biodiversity in all things in Costa Rica. I think there's maybe like there's a thing, an affinity for that.
There's definitely a draw. There's a call.
For sure.
Yeah, Costa Rica for sure. Because like in Santa Teresa, when we were there, we met a ton of people from Toronto.
Yes.
But I just like in terms of the instant engagement. I don't know what it was called, but we were like tapping and just qigong. We were getting like arriving basically in the space. And so is there anything that you would do like for our listeners right now, if they want to, maybe they're distracted in their day, that you would recommend or that we could do together right now in terms of arriving in the space? And I want to just like kick this off and jump right in.
Just do some breaths together. One of the best things to do is channel and anchor in and center ourselves with our breath. Something that we have together that we can share, but it's what the first thing that we do in life and the last thing that we do in life. So when we enter a new experience, it's sort of the first thing and last thing we can do.
I like that idea.
So let's begin. Maybe
we'll
take in 5 breaths.
Okay.
We can take in some deep breaths. We don't have to do it to a specific count, but just follow me. So 5 breaths. Let's sit up nice and tall, feet grounded on the floor, spine tall, rooting into the seat. Crown is also nice and tall, just like a tree. And from here, we'll take our first deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. A little deeper, inflate that belly. Expand the chest, and then exhale. 3rd time. Feel those shoulders relax. 4th breath in. Exhale. Last one in and out. Okay.
I already feel better.
As simple as that. Breathing.
How do you feel better?
Yeah, just to balance the pH levels within your system, get a oxygen intake, carbon dioxide out. Some of the nitric oxide within you when you do that nasal breath will naturally calm you down and turn on that parasympathetic nervous system, that calming state. And then also being aware and mindful of how you sit posturally is also another way to channel in what's called your neural your nervous system with your muscular system, your neuromuscular system. That connection there is really important with your breath. So
Yeah, beautiful way to start. I'm here.
Yeah.
I hope you're here.
Is everyone else here?
Yeah, I hope you're here, y'all. And I think that breathing is such an interesting part of the life experience because like it's both unconscious and it can be conscious at the same time, right? So it's like this dual nature where it's like I don't actually control my blood cells or what's happening with a lot of my organs, like and virtually all the time my breath is unconscious and happens automatically. Like if you just don't ever pay attention to your breathing, it'll do it on its own. It's not like you're gonna die.
It's an autopilot.
But so just really briefly, because I know you talked about vitality, how does breath integrate with living a vital experience and having that experience of energy and wellness?
Well, breath is life, and we can choose to use it as a way to become a little more in tune, or we can not think about it and just let it be. I think the choice for breath and how we control it and how we manipulate it and use it to strategically show up is essential. And it's one of the only things you can truly control to an extent. You can also control your effort and your attitude. So I say those are the three things that we can control: our effort, our attitude, and our breath. And the breath is a physiological experience. And so the other two can be concepts, but immediately the first tangible thing you can do is that breath.
Nice.
And so if you do want to harness and bring forward a higher vitality to the experience that you're about to enter, breath is one of the first things.
Yeah, there's a YouTube sensation and a writer and a personal development speaker, Brendan Burchard, and he wrote a book called The High Performance Habits. He wrote a bunch of bestsellers before that, but that was one of his new ones. It almost seemed like it was very similar to the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. It was like 6 habits of high performers. And one of the way he described it was like taking your habits, and the difficult habits are the ones you have to be conscious about. And he said, whenever you enter a space, wherever you switch activities, doing something like what we did at the workshop, like being like rooting into where we are, leaving the things that we were doing before or the next project that we're going to work on, and just enjoying the experience of being together in this present moment is like part of that high performance, which is arriving. And one of the things he recommended was to breathe. And then some people have a mantra, which is like the context of who I'm going to be, or maybe a theme of how I'm going to show up in this experience. Do you ever use anything like that?
Rhyming. Well, the PERMA V model, it all comes and syncs through breath as well. So, I mean, engagement, to be engaged and say like, hey, let's do some breath right off the bat, especially when we're syncing up together, to be here together, to deliver an experience for one out there and for each other. Uniting that is really important, so that we're all on the same page, not only like mentally, but on the physiological level.
Got it. Yeah, I really like this concept, especially in communication. It's called meeting your audience where they're at before you take them where you want them to go. And so I was just like, I was totally captivated by this facilitation. And so for the listeners who are like, you know, who are these guys and how do they know each other? I showed up at this event. Julian was the facilitator for the experience, and the talk was about community, which I definitely want to talk about, because the Circle Up podcast is about masculinity, is about men's mental health. But really, when I think about the broadest theme possible for it, it's about community. And when I knew for sure that I wanted to have you on the podcast, I told you about it. It's right before we started. You said you can take your armor off.
Yes. Yeah.
And I really like that. And so for those wondering who are like, can you explain? Yeah, we're gonna have to project into this mic because we are in the rainforest. You know? We are in the rainforest, and the rain is picking up. Can you talk about like what? Because in our men's circle we talk about masks.
Yes.
We talk about the key to trusting masculine relationships is developing confidential spaces, being able to trust each other. and then I can actually take my mask off because I know that what I say in this space is confidential. Is that what you meant by armor, or can you talk a little bit about what that analogy means to you and how can we use that in relation to some of the things that are important to you, like community and holistic approaches to health? And
Armor for sure is like another way of describing masks. I like to bring inspiration from the human body. So when I think about armor as well, I think about guarding. So lower back, a lot of people have lower back pain and issues.
I have lower back pain.
And so, the pain can be from an injury that's acute or it could be chronic or long-term. But what happens, the body's natural defense system turns on certain muscles and holds them in tension. And so the achiness and the tightness is a guarding, is this armor that's on.
Like protection.
It's protecting yourself from hurting itself even more. And so the only way to alleviate that level of guarding is to be at a calm state and to decrease the inflammation, to decrease the amount of energy and the heightened stimulus to that area. And so doing the activities before the actual session by qigong, tapping, breathwork together, doing a little bit of and just some communication with the neighbor next to you. Then moving into a prompt of taking your armor off is this 2-for-1 deal. You do a physiological shift and then you allow the mind to then be less guarded. So it's like putting maybe an ice pack or a heat pack on your lower back, which is through some of the activities that we did, the working out, and then the working in is permission and just being like, it's okay to take your armor off. It's a safe space. We've kind of opened the circle and created this force field around it. We've connected with each other in this very gentle, inviting, and sincere, empathetic way. And to allow people to take that armor off is allowing the lower back muscles to say, hey, we're chill, we're in a safe place. You can let go a little bit and you can de-stress because we're not going to threaten it with any more heat or movement or anything like that. So that's kind of where my brain goes when I'm thinking about the word armor, and then that second word of permission, allowing people to just feel safe in the space and giving them the chance to, oh wow, I don't have to show up as someone with my gloves on and my armor on, ready to fight. This is not about that. So this is more about camaraderie than it is about competition. It's about sharing than it is about scarcity. So just really want to set that tone there. And I'm glad that it resonated with you.
Yeah.
Big time.
Totally.
That's a huge win.
Totally.
For facilitation and for the language and the cueing that we use when we do create spaces for people to connect. Those are the specific words. And it takes time to think about it, to embody it from another facilitator, and then to put it out there into practice. So I'm glad that it worked.
Yeah, it did, man. And I think this podcast is very unique in the sense that virtually all the guests that I've ever had on this show, like I know them intimately. We have a lot of history together. We have deep roots. Maybe we shared like a peak experience together. And you and I don't really have that.
Wow.
And so, you know, when we create context for the listeners on why what we're talking about makes sense and why they should consider applying some of the concepts and ideas in their lives, I'm also going to be learning about context into your life as well. So I'm happy that we're going to be able to, the listeners and I are going to be able to learn that together. Can you just talk to me about like maybe an experience or a story that led you to facilitation, or that led you to the work you do, or that led you to being in Puerto Viejo, like wherever you feel like no pressure, wherever you feel like starting, we'll kind of build context around that experience. Any stories you like to tell about how you got to where you're at right now?
100% with the work that I presented, the 2.0 method, just that concept of creating community through events, special events that are more on the conscious, caring level, the heart-centric level. It stemmed from issues within the fitness industry that I felt deeply in Toronto, and I'm sure magnified in other cities as well. And that was a lack of community. It was dog eat dog. Wild Wild West. First to ship is the one that dominates the territory. If you have these many degrees and this much education, you have the right of way.
Sounds like a battle of egos.
Battle of egos, 100%. And so I questioned and I started asking, is there anyone responsible for the standards that we uphold and how we can play nice with other people? And the associations that we were all certified by didn't really hold that under their responsibility. Their job, I think, was just to provide us the opportunity to certify, to get some continuing education, but it's more than just
Profit.
that. Profit,
Yeah,
yes, exactly. And I just felt a need to create a community out of an industry. And that came from when I was a kid being a part of student council.
Nice.
And I thought, where is the student council of the
Yeah.
fitness industry?
Yeah.
Who is responsible
Board of
for
directors
board of
or-
directors? Who is responsible for the liaison between
Sure.
the governance and the student body? And can we have this crowdsourcing grassroots effort as opposed to wait from top down? Because
Sure.
there was no top down.
Yeah.
So a lot of holes were found, a lot of problems were found, not only within a specific discipline, but across the board of how you experience and consume fitness and movement. So from yoga to CrossFit to dance to athletic training, no one was really talking. There was a lack of communication and not many bridges.
Just all these isolated silos of different practitioners and
Yes.
different methodologies, but there was
Yes.
no integration.
No integration, no
Got it.
interconnection, no coexistence. It really wasn't healthy.
That's something that really inspired me about the event as well. Just going back to
The mind share.
Mindshare and the experience we had together, because it was like, I'm facilitating this, but I'm not the star of the show. Like, the point of this is to bring people together that have great ideas,
Yes.
so that we could spark connection and think differently. And,
Mhm.
and maybe what one person says is going to resonate and they'll make a connection and that could produce something. It's not
Yes.
about me. It's about like, what can we create together?
Right.
And so it sounds like that philosophy. It reminds me of, I'm going to screw it up, Perma V, which is like, you can't take one of them out. They're all interrelated and interdependent.
Mhm.
It's like an analogy that Alan Watts uses, which is life is kind of like a big spider web that has like dew. So like it's a little wet,
Yes.
and you can kind of see the reflection of every single droplet of water through each droplet of water. And so like everything is tied in,
Yes.
everything is related.
Yeah.
And so, it sounds like you're trying to create that
Mhm.
in all the efforts that you do, which is, I think it's a beautiful endeavor.
Yeah. When you said the web in movement and in the human body, there's a concept or a phenomena called tensegrity. It's tensional integrity. And so the system of the body applies force and receives force as an entire whole system. And so you can think of an interconnecting web of fibers.
Yeah.
What you feel, in your earlobe can be
Wow.
basically attached to your baby toe.
It makes so much sense.
And so this tensegrity model is there's an integrity to how things are tensionally connected from one cable or one fiber, one fascial line.
Sure.
And these are all the internettings of our human system. And then another term is called cybernetics, which is a system is dependent on another system. And they're all interlinking systems. And so that mindset is the baseline to holistic thinking and holistic health, is that your digestive system is highly correlated and codependent on, let's say, your circulatory system, respiratory system,
Can't take one out, man.
everything, your central nervous, like it just continues to build upon each other. And when you start to really understand the connections of that, then you start thinking more integratively rather than isolate.
Yeah, That reminds me of, be careful of the weakest link, because it impacts everything else.
Yes.
One of the
You are only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah, one of the methodologies that, so like, again, we're gonna have to grab a beer after this and talk about this on a very deep level, because like I have a very it's very demoralizing for me at this point, like my fitness and my health and my body, and but I'd love to talk about it more in a confidential space.
Yes.
But one of the methodologies I tried and I've been trying is called Happy Body. And there's this guy out in Poland, his name is Jerzy Gregorich, and he was an Olympic weightlifting champion, and he developed this system called Happy Body to help people to have a happy body. And so like I was, trying it, and I don't know, I must have done it for 6 months. But the one of the things that's really stood out is he said that most people that die, it's from one organ that gives up, or one organ that's been abused. And then it's not like you die because everything fails at the same time. It's like one thing fails and then everything fails. And so this idea of like everything is interrelated, interdependent, that obviously draws into what you were trying to create in the fitness industry. And so it inspired this type of community event.
Yeah, cultivating community for sure. It started just for fitness, and then expanded to fitness, health, and wellness. And then it started to expand to thought leaders from other communities, other tribes, people who believed in the holistic, people who believed that doing work from the heart and the passion is what truly matters and what makes a difference. People were looking for that altruism mixed with enlightenment. People who are willing to do the work, who are walking the talk.
True.
And so those people I built personal relationships with and really studied what they do. That gained trust, and that allowed these people to come together and feel safe to share what they do. And the TED Talks has truly inspired me to create something that that allowed for ideas to share and spread. I think it's important to also identify those that are the cross-pollinators of this world, the bumblebees, the hummingbirds, because those are the bridges of the world that bring one tribe into the other. And so I just speak to that as a representation of myself. Like, I'm a generalist. I like to drop into all different tribes. Back in high school, I was never one group of people. I always like to hop from one clique to another clique, one sport to another sport. Very diverse human being, divergent, as I mentioned. And that resonated with me, and it brought other people who were like me together to continue to carve and distill what 2.0 methodology could be. And it shows up now as these really highly curated events that bring like minds together from different backgrounds. And we can learn so much from books and from people of different generations, but this is all about peer-to-peer and seeing each other as equals. And I think that really resonates with the people that do come, because then you can really get to some true work, which is the next step, is taking the information that we've learned at the events and then putting it into action further. So, but I think the best thing to come from an event like that is the showing up. And that's what a lot of professionals that were there had kind of mentioned and alluded to, that showing up not just for the community, but for yourself and taking care of yourself. I think that's a really important message that's quite common amongst most of the Mindshares that I host. And the Mindshare is a boutique TED Talks. It's a smaller TED Talks. We have anywhere from 10 people to 30 people, nothing more than that, because we want to keep the intimacy. We want to be able to have each person interact with almost everyone that arrives in the room.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to kind of prove the methodology, I've been in Puerto Viejo for less than a week, and over and over again, people are honking when they're driving by me. What's up, Jonathan? And I'm like, I don't even know who it is, but like they must have met me at the event, and like we just saw Lisa at the Caribbean, and I've seen Tyranny, and I've seen Susan again, and just like all these faces. Will was at El Puente. I volunteered at El Puente because of that event. So it's just like, you can just see how possibility exists inside of connection. Right. And so if you're always like, isolated in a bubble, which is a challenge for me sometimes, because like I'm thinking about my mission and my purpose. I've got this objective. I got to write this book, and that's my goal. And so I kind of like, try to isolate myself from the world so I can make it happen. And I never look up to see what else is going on. And then I miss all this world of possibility.
Yeah. I think what's really important too is that, remember my 3 ups that I said at the end? Show up,
Yeah.
follow up, and fill up your cup.
Yeah.
And so the really important thing that you did is you followed up. You went to El Puente to experience that.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes to the character of who you are, is that you take the information, you kind of want to put it out there and continue that work. Which when you said that made my heart sing. I was really, really happy to hear that. And those are the success stories that I latch onto that continue to give me that belief and that hope and that drive to continue doing this kind of work. And I feel like a missionary when I say this stuff.
Preach, buddy, preach.
The work, but it is what makes the world go round, and I hope it gives people belief, faith, confidence that there are bright spots happening around the world. And sometimes when you least expect it, an event like this, you just have no expectations, or maybe you do, and you walk in and you just leave feeling like, wow, I can't believe just on a whim I was able to experience something like this that changes the trajectory of your plans.
True.
I think that's that's a real win.
Yeah.
Huge win.
Yeah, I think
for everyone, actually. For El Puente, for me, for you, for the people that you're surrounding yourself with.
So that philosophy of the integration and interdependence, and like one of the major themes of the Circle Up book that I'm writing and the podcast is like, when I thrive, like it makes the world a better place.
Yes.
Right? Because I can contribute that to the world. Alan Watts has this philosophy, is like, if you want to delight people, you need to be more or less delightful. You need to, like you're saying, fill up.
Yes.
Right? How am I supposed to pour into the world? How am I supposed to contribute anything if I have no vitality and no energy and no enthusiasm and no passion inside of me? Which is why some of my health concerns are like, am I really going to be able to bring my best self if I'm constantly feeling bogged down by how I feel? And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to the show have one area of their life where it's like a constant chronic issue or challenge that prevents them from giving their best self. But we need you to give your best self.
Totally. One of the mantras that I use, or quotes, is to be interesting, you have to be interested. And that's been my thing as a generalist, is if I want to learn more about the variety of human experience, variety is the spice of life, I have to be interested and put in that intentional time, that deliberate practice to focus in and have discipline on learning about a certain subject. Because then I have stories to share and things that I want to express and pour out into the world and contribute. So that's a big thing that came up when you're talking about the Alan Watts quote. That really, really fuels me. Another thing that you asked in terms of the 2.0 stuff and maybe how I got from where I was to here, stewardship is the new leadership. Really, stewardship, guiding people. There's so many different ways of displaying leadership. Many ways that we've known and we've grown up with is this pedestal leader, this person that's a dictator,
almost forceful.
Forceful, yes. The leader is seen up high.
Yeah,
exactly. Authoritative. Thank you. And I think nowadays we have so many of those kinds of leaders. I think it's a good chance and good opportunity now to investigate and redefine, reimagine what leadership can be. And that's something that I got down to unpacking with some friends that I had pre-game talked before the actual event. We came down to talking about leadership as another design option or priorities activity before we actually decide how to design and develop better communities in 2021, which was the theme of the event. we didn't think about the how-tos. We thought, okay, let's prioritize who's responsible for the community and who has the decision-making power, who are the people that are going to actually do the designing and developing. And that came down to the leaders. And a lot of the issues that we thought happen typically in community comes down to leadership. And I think the narrowing field of and definition of what a leader is decreases the opportunities and the options of what a community can actually become. And so when we think about design, there's an element of creativity and imagination. So we are standing on the shoulders of giants from our ancestors and from the past work that's been done. Yeah. Yes. We don't have to be bounded by that. We don't have to follow exactly in their footsteps. We have that as a resource. What can we do in the context of our current circumstance, life, in the present moment, to redefine community through its leaders? And it comes down to us. It comes down to showing up, following up, and filling up your cup. Those are the three things that I think are quick, easy, digestible pieces that we can all take in to reassess who we are as leaders to other people. And a lot of it comes down to maybe leadership without a title. Leaders without a title.
Yeah, Robin Sharma has a book.
You don't need
The Leader with No Title.
Right.
Never read it, but it kind of seems self-explanatory.
It's an amazing title.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Very provocative and
right.
timely.
Exactly. So there's definitely a lot to understand with that, and to maybe pull out. And that's one of the things that caught you is the armor. You know, leaders come with expectation of what a leader looks like, and maybe some of the best leaders are those that are the most vulnerable, that take their armor off, or maybe just don't have that armor to begin with, have trained themselves to deflect and be more like water, absorb, reshape, remold. And I'm really learning a lot about my own leadership through being here in the jungle, because our inner nature is reflective of our outer nature that surrounds us, and we are very much our surroundings. And so to help curate and foster a different level of becoming or development, finding inspiration from other people is one thing, but finding it from plants and animals and the intelligence of the ecosystem is this huge wealth that I haven't tapped into until I moved here.
It's tough in Toronto. Concrete jungle versus jungle.
You got it.
Yeah. What, can you give me an example of maybe an experience you had being here in Costa Rica, where you felt like you learned about yourself or you learned about your leadership?
I was telling you before about an accident that I had.
Yeah, get into it, man. That scary.
Was profound for sure. So I came in after a permaculture design course with the need and the urgency to get shit done, to be here, plop myself in and try to work.
Yeah, there was a burning desire there. Wow.
Yeah, to feel productive. And I'll loop around to a deep learning for me on productivity at the end of this. But decided to go for a workout, had a planned day, scheduled meetings with some really epic people that I was lucky to be introduced to. And so I wanted to kick off the day with vitality. So I went to the beach and did some workout, did a great beach workout, calisthenics.
Nice.
Took a swim in an area that actually was not favorable.
Okay.
And rip currents are very strong on the Caribbean side. So, you know, I end up getting pulled out by the rip current. And
so just for context, rip current is like an undercurrent?
Undercurrent, yes, that pulls you in out of away from the shore.
Wow.
Into the ocean,
that
just
kind
of swallowing you out. Yes. For surfers, it's great because it's a free.
Yeah, it's a ride out there.
It's a ride. It's like a treadmill
or like a ski lift, ski lift taking you up at the top of the hill. But in this case, when you don't have a board or you're not prepared for it,
you do not want to be in a rip current.
Especially if you don't know how to swim very well. I'm
right.
sure a lot of people get pulled out.
Right. Even as a strong swimmer, as an Ironman, you know, anything can happen, and many deaths have sadly been reported because of these rips, because either people don't listen or don't see, or just they're not in the right mindset.
Water is unforgiving.
You got it. The ocean is a very powerful thing. that if not respected or understood, you get swallowed up.
Respected for sure.
Yeah.
So you got pulled out.
I got pulled out, had to get rescued, had to call the help from the lifeguards because I was done. I had a moment where, is this it? And I really, I have a really interesting relationship with water. I've had 3 near drownings in my life where I've actually had to get resuscitated once. And so my relationship with water has been my biggest teacher in my life. And because I naturally gravitate towards being a fire element, the water is definitely...
It's almost like a chink in your armor.
It is, yeah, it is. And...
but that's where you need to explore.
Exactly. And so it's been a continuous partner in crime, or partner in success.
Partner in like spiritual development.
Yes, exactly. So anyways, going back to the story, I got pulled out, got rescued, and that was one thing. But to top it off, my mind was still in overdrive, wanting to commit to the day and succeed and be productive. So I went back to my place.
The lifeguards grabbed you.
They grabbed me.
You're swallowing water, you said, and they grabbed you.
They brought me in. They brought me in, and then
you're okay.
And it took a while to get back into the beach, the shore. When I did, I started laughing. I just had no other way of expressing myself except for laughter. Like, I can't believe that just happened. So then I picked myself up, gathered whatever was left of my ego, and just
this plan.
Yeah, and I
gotta keep going.
Plan. It's got me driving forward. Went back to my place. My roommate was freaking out, saying, "Dude, you need to rest. You need to chill out. What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "No, I gotta get on my day. I gotta go. I don't want to let these people down."
Sure.
So I rode my bike from down the mountain, and my bike chain snaps off, going downhill.
Interesting.
And I dodged, a car, a person, a dog. Finally crashed, landed on my face.
Whoa.
Sliced my forehead up to the top of my skull.
Whoa.
Had like all these scars now, but my face was just mangled and bruised. A big, huge mushroom bruise came right out of my forehead.
It's like insult to injury right here.
Yeah,
or insult in the wound.
Yeah. And so my roommate was freaking out, and I'm always surprised at how I respond to emergency, and I was really calm. And I was like, okay, well,
what am I going to do? I already landed on my face.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, the learning lesson of that is slow down, and not be as aggressive with what you need to get done and what you feel defines you. The pacing was off. The ego was the leader here.
Forefront, yeah.
Yeah, and I needed to feel a certain level of accomplishment for the day. I still use it as a reflection piece to channel in what it was and a reminder of how I continue to be more present. And so the learning from there was, why did I fall into these accidents? Why did I get pulled out of the rip or by the rip? Why did I fall on my face? Well, it was a lack of presence and a lack of slowing down and mindfulness. It was me thinking 5 steps down the road. So while I was swimming in the rip, while I was swimming and not thinking about, oh, there's a red flag here. Oh, you're kind of being pulled out a little further. Maybe you should go further in, rather than thinking about the meeting and how you want to be when you are at that meeting in front of this potential mentor of yours. Or did you get your transcript done, or did you submit this form? I was thinking about all that stuff, but not thinking about being present in the water.
Yeah.
So those things pulled me away. On the bike, I was biking, and if I was a little bit more present, I would have seen that the chain was really, really not good. Yeah. It was rusted, and it just wasn't in good shape. If I had taken a moment to just breathe and be calm and maybe think, maybe I'll walk down this hill, because it looks pretty messy.
Dude, that's an intense hill you got there, man. We just climbed up this mountain basically to get to this perch, which is gorgeous.
We should do a turnaround on the camera.
Yeah, we can do that for sure. If you want to keep talking, I'll show you what you got over here.
But it was a lack of presence. And that ocean view, morning view, you get to see toucans. There's sloths in some of the trees.
But that means that you got a downhill bike to get there.
Yeah.
Down to the street.
Yeah.
So you're learning about presence. I think Jim Rohn, again, going back to him, he talked about one of his like major lessons in productivity was when you're in the shower, don't be at the office. When you're driving to work, don't be thinking about clients.
Yes.
He's like, when you're on the phone with the client is when you should be thinking about the client.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so like, you know, in the past, I've like, it's important to like, as an example, just a quick example, practical is, you know, it's important for me to prepare for the show, but I can't spend all day in my head about what am I going to say or where is it going to go? Cause I have no idea until I show up.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were saying is like, I'm, and it's exacerbated in your situation because oftentimes maybe you're going for a walk or you're hanging out with your wife and you're thinking about other things while you're doing that. But now you're in a dangerous, potentially dangerous situation where you're in the water, where being present is actually the most practical thing you could do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I love, and I've excelled at trail running. Not that this story shows that I am really good at being present, but I mean, track record, being an ultramarathon runner, what it does, it helps and forces you. It's a forcing function to be present, because one misstep, you can twist an ankle. One misturn, you can fall off a cliff. If you eat something that
Maybe aggravates
your digestion, you know, you're paying for it near the end of the end of the race when you need to be at your highest performance level. There's so many small micro adjustments that need to be taken into consideration when completing an ultramarathon, and a high level of preparedness. Also presence. You have to be present. You have to be in it. You have to be in tune and attuned to your body, to the environment. And it's a huge study. It's a practice. It's meditative. It's so many things. So I kind of thought to myself, yeah, the swim accident and the bike accident were not a display of your ultramarathon endurance capacity.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something that was misaligned.
Were you distracted? Are you distracted?
Yeah,
or?
I think it was
like, man, sometimes I'm like, especially you were in Santa Teresa, right?
Like, before, yeah.
Yeah, you were in Santa Teresa before. Like when I was in Santa Teresa, man, I was like in my head a lot. So it's just interesting to pay attention to that. It's when am I present? When am I not? Because I'm sure a lot of the listeners are listening to this, they're resonating. It's like, well, I'm not surfing, but I'm thinking about other things. I'm doing something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One funny revelation was going through a list of positive work behaviors, and one of them is single tasking. It's called single tasking. It's an actual technique.
Yep. Do one thing.
Do one thing as opposed to
don't multitask because it doesn't exist.
Right. Exactly.
Especially for men.
Exactly. So I was just so. It was such an easy thing to think about. Well, single tasking. Okay, today I'm just gonna focus on reading a book, or right now I'm just gonna focus on reading a book, and nothing else. Putting that phone away, putting away these other distractions, is one of the first things. It's like if you're rowing your boat towards a destination, to get to the destination faster, you don't just row harder. You plug the holes in your boat.
Sure.
And you make sure that you are in a stable place before you start rowing with better technique.
Yeah, even if you row hard and you're taking in water, you ain't gonna be getting very far.
Right, which is what happens very often when we are so determined to get to a place. I find that in myself. I'm a very goal-oriented human being and results-driven. And sometimes you forget that I could get from point A to point B much faster if I start to pull away the detractors, the things that don't serve this task that needs to be done. And when I pull away those things, I'm like, whoa, I can work 10 times faster, more efficiently. But the cherry on top is the enjoyment of it. It doesn't become a task anymore. It becomes a beautiful practice. It becomes this playful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, because one of the coolest things you can do that I found being out here in Puerto Viejo and being out here in Costa Rica and when I was in Mexico is go swim in the ocean. It's just like, it is so relaxing and it is restorative and calming, and it could be playful, but only if I'm really there when I'm there.
Yeah. I went to I just remembered to finish off the productivity piece.
The lesson, yeah.
Yeah, the lesson there was me, and it's still a learning lesson in practice now, is to not define myself by productivity. The value that I provide people and the value that I see within myself and my own self-identity is not defined by my productivity. And that's
some
really
level
difficult.
of output or something like that.
Yes, that's really something that's been challenging for me. And what's helped is to redefine the currency of the work that I put forward. Does productivity always have to come down to monetary gain and income? Or can it be how many connections I make? Can it be how many smiles I get from people?
Yeah.
Can it come down to, how many steps closer towards perma V I can get? That's something that's been on my journey very, very in my face, especially since I'm not working and coming from Toronto, major city, there's a workaholic feel to it, and I had to strip away from that. And that was a really interesting balance that I had to play when being here on a sabbatical, to being a tourist, to then making this a learning experience, to then redefining this as maybe I can work and live at the same time. And I always come back to maybe you can work and live in a place that continues to push that monetary currency forward. And that's sort of the best environment for it. But here, is this currency of money the best way to enhance that experience while traveling? I don't think so. I really don't think so. It comes with the territory. And also another thing that I bring from that productivity is knowing the difference between output and outcome. What we put out may not always end up in a certain outcome. They may not always align. So, for example, like the effort that we put towards this podcast may yield a certain reach, but may not. And so to not tie our effort to the outcome is detachment. And it's just this letting go of whatever happens, but I just know for myself that I put my heart and soul forward, and that I wanted to really connect with you, Jonathan, and you, the listeners. And that's all that matters to me, because there's so many uncontrollable factors that determine
virtually everything.
that determine the outcome.
Yeah.
So, and again, to piggyback off of that is the difference between ROI, return on investment, to VOI, value on investment. The return on investment is so transactional. It's so linear. It's so absolute, black and white.
Yeah, I put this in, I get that out.
Exactly.
It's heartless almost.
Exactly. Calories in, calories out.
Sure.
Does it work? No. The nutrients that you get in are disqualified. I mean, the experience of eating is qualified there. The camaraderie
of the people around you.
All the qualitatives are not given value.
You can't really put your finger on exactly the value of it, but there's something to be said about it.
Right. And so how we measure success is not always on return on investment. It should be on the value of investment. It's on the qualitatives, the things sometimes you can't truly measure with numbers. They're the subjectives. And those are the experiences that end up more memorable than sometimes the objectives, the number-based, the volume-based things, the quantitatives. I like to strike a balance between the two, because I think they help offset each other and they help counterbalance each other. So, speaking airy-fairy about things and being woo-woo about stuff is great, because it's inspirational, it's welcoming, it's diverse, it's alternative, but it's also
some people want to be in the dirt sometimes.
But it also gives value to those quantitative experiences, the westernized practice of medicine and whatnot, the scientific method, these facts and figures that give us a certain level of stability in the research that we put forward. And it also allows people to create metrics of step-by-step accomplishments, and that's really incentivizing too. It's very motivating to see numbers. So I'm in this back and forth between words and numbers and different currencies to evaluate performance and productivity. And again, like sometimes productivity can be as simple as non-doing, rather than doing. And that's a learning lesson that wraps this all together, is maybe slowing down and being more than becoming is really important. Being present.
Yeah.
Just the gift of being is nourishing, and giving yourself time to just even think about that is beautiful.
Yeah.
I always used to say, and I ask people this question: who can you love becoming? That's great because it gives you something to work towards, and it allows you to visualize, because we know visualization in the future is very important for sports psychology, for example. When athletes close their eyes and they visualize, like Formula One racers or basketball players, they visualize every turn.
I used to do it in trampoline.
Right. Okay. So it really helps with technical and giving yourself that self-confidence and boost and whatnot. But to fast forward too far ahead and really try to imagine who you could be, who you could love becoming, sometimes could be a detriment as well.
Yeah.
It can be sometimes crippling.
It can be discouraging for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you don't get there, then what?
Yeah. I think the kind of the major takeaway for me on this podcast, it's funny because if anyone's looking at the visual experience, especially if we cut any of these clips like later on in the podcast, it just looks like we're two dudes in the dark. We definitely are two dudes in the dark right now. But it was just that concept of slowing down has been a major theme for me. And I thought I was making strides in it, because I thought I was making improvements with my body. And I was like, the only way I'm going to feel better and get better and remove some of these injuries and some of these like chronic pains is if I pay attention and slow down and breathe into these experiences. And I haven't gotten there yet. So maybe I think the mistake I'm making is there's like an element of like trying to do something versus doing it. And I may be misinterpreting the concept of being present versus like, because I'm being present, I have to try to do it when I'm doing it, instead of somehow just like entering into and just allowing it to take over. So that's kind of something I'm wrestling with personally, but it's showing up in this conversation about slowing down, doing one thing at a time, stop trying to worry about how productive I'm being, because we're living this exceptionalism culture where I need to be reach my highest potential. But it's like, is there anything other than this moment? Maybe my highest potential is just arriving in the space. Maybe my highest potential is just being fully present with you in this conversation.
Yeah.
Because that's when I feel alive and that's when I feel best. So, it's something that I'm wrestling with. I'm sure our listeners are wrestling. It sounds like you're wrestling with. And I'm just wondering, kind of like coming full circle on this conversation, how are you going to proceed with all these new lessons? How are you going to proceed with all of these thoughts you're having? Is it going to be with quality of life and peace of mind and perma V, or how are you going to kind of tie these together? Because I know harmony is a big element of your philosophy. I don't know if that ties in here, or just for kind of like, we're going to turn this recording off. I'm going to go hang out with some friends. Maybe you'll show up, hang out with us. But like for the listeners as well, like as a takeaway, like what are we going to, maybe it's not even a question of doing. Where do we go from here? Like,
well, I was just about to say a doing thing.
Yeah.
But do less things deeper. Could be a step in that direction. I think being kind to yourself, being okay with not being okay. We are hearing these things right now, especially during this time where there's so many there's a lot of uncertainty. But one acceptance is some of the best things that happen in life are uncertain. They come from randomness. They come from an unplanned walk to meet Suzanne and then go to an event.
Totally.
It wasn't planned. It wasn't, but it was maybe your destiny to do it. There was maybe a belief and hope to just do what feels right from the gut and listen to your intuition. A lot of the information that we have, that we seek, is already within us. And the more time you spend with yourself and studying yourself, whether it be
Yeah, people are wondering if there's demons, because it's now dark on the show. So they're like, what demon? There's a howler monkeys, and they literally sound like there's some disturbing figure that's crawling at us in the dark, but it's just howler
amazing.
monkeys.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Howler monkeys and and chickens in the morning. But listen to nature. Literally listen to nature. The nature that we have within us. Take time to study your body and whatever happens all within us. Dive deep into your own mind. And yeah, the nature that if you have the ability to get out into nature, into the outdoors, that's probably the best laboratory or the best canvas for you to explore your mind.
Yeah, I think this is the right way to end the show. And the reason why I say that is because it just blows my mind. I don't want to get political on this show. That's not the purpose of the show, but it just blows my mind the types of recommendations that have come out of government and policymakers over the last year about how people should be taking care of themselves. Because based off everything I know about what we've talked about on this show, which is vitality, it's so counterintuitive, and it's telling people to do the opposite of what makes them feel good and the opposite of what's in our nature. So as an example, what's in my nature is to go for a walk in the forest. But early on in the pandemic, I got an alert on my phone that said, do not leave your house. If you're out in public, you will get a fine. And so just like I don't want to get in terms of like, what should we do or what shouldn't we do? But it sounds to me like, there's an opportunity moving forward to just really fine tune how we live and to question, is the way that I'm living my life congruent with my nature? Because being distracted and doing all these activities at different times and like striving for the greatest output, is that really what I was put here to do? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it's like, that's an introspection conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like this whole podcast was about introspection.
100%. Yeah. The 4 doctors that you'll ever need to consult are Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Movement, and Dr. Happiness. These 4. And many of us need a little more of that Dr. Quiet. Spending time in solitude. Because so many things are changing. There's so much noise that no matter how hard you close your ears and your eyes, there's noise happening from within as well, from programming when we were young. And to quiet that and give yourself time to introspect and have solitude and a peace of mind is probably one of the most sought after commodities, I guess, in this day and age. Yeah. Especially with the digital age, with all this abundance of information, it's just overload. So a lot of us are stressed because of that, because there's so much that's happening, which is exciting. But how do we better pace ourselves in this race or this journey through life? How can we better pace ourselves? Maybe that could be a takeaway to help kind of narrow in and hone in our vitality and pick and choose, prioritize where we want to go, base it on pace.
That's actually such
Pace your purpose.
You keep opening up cans of worms because you were an ultra marathon runner, right? So pace is something that's really important to you. But my roommate and I keep talking about how life's more like interval training, right? Where it's like, you go all in on something and then you get to actually sit back and take time to rest and recover and learn, I don't know what the right, integrate.
Yes.
Right. And then go back out and do it again.
Download.
But it's like that ultra marathon experience is a totally different experience. So I'm sure you've learned all sorts of lessons from ultra marathon.
I have a whole podcast on ultra marathon. With the HIIT training philosophy, the quote that comes to mind is, "The candle that burns twice as bright lives half as long." Now that's a way of life for maybe thrill seekers. Maybe people who are YOLOing all the time.
There's definitely a time and place for a good YOLO, you know what I'm saying?
But funny thing is nowadays I'm happy to JOMO, joy of missing out.
Yeah.
I really am at that phase of life where I know what I want, I know what I enjoy, and sometimes FOMO, fear of missing out, is the last on my mind. I mean, there's nothing that I'm missing out on if I kind of concentrate on the inside and the within. Because do I need things from the outside world to satisfy me? To an extent, yes, but also there's a lot that I need to work on and can kind of learn to find joy and happiness in the quiet times, those times with myself. And again, that self-care and that self-time, introspection, just coming back to that is a takeaway that I feel strongly about for people.
Thank you for doing this, man.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you for doing this, man. This
Thank
was
you
fun,
for,
dude.
like, asking me. I feel honored.
Totally, man.
feel
Well, I
so
feel like this is
honored.
just the beginning. I feel like this is just the beginning because I definitely have you come back on the show after a couple months of living abroad, or
Right.
some of the lessons you've learned in the next few months, and
Yeah.
finding out how you've been paying attention,
Right.
seeing
right.
if that's been helping you out, and
Right.
so I'm sure this is just the beginning for us, man.
Talk about relationships too.
Damn, bro, you could like just like the wealth of knowledge, it's clear, and the wisdom you have is clear. Like the quotes coming to mind is like just the surface level, because it's like, okay, well, you could probably tell 3 or 4 stories that relate to that quote. So I have lots of time. Like I would love to get into money psychology. I would
Yes.
love to get into the way you look at relationships, and
Mhm.
because this guy is like unbelievable networker, and when I look at networking, there's so many people I see that do it in such like a distasteful way, where I see it and I'm just like, that doesn't actually inspire me at all. But the way that you do it, when you're, trying to bring people together so that they can share, and we could take from their learnings and their life experiences and the challenges that they've experienced, is just like harmonious approach.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring, and it's something that I tried to do with the Circle Up experience. Is the season I'm working on, and I should definitely commit to really making sure that it's done world class, is highlight the people that have made the community what it is, rather than
Yes.
trying to be this voice and face where it's about me. It's about like, okay, well, how can we appreciate them, because without them this wouldn't be possible.
Of course. Yeah.
So
The first follower rule, which is opening up another.
yo, we're done. We're gonna go get a drink. It's Friday night. You can't even see us anymore. It's pitch
Oh my God.
black. Yeah, it's like, does this place even have any lights?
Candlelight.
Yeah, oh, that would be it. Candlelight sessions for the next podcast. Thanks for doing this, man.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate like just who you're being in the world and how you're showing up in the world. Like I said right at the beginning, and I mean it wholeheartedly, is the interactions that I've experienced from you is you are actually in the way that Alan Watts says, if you want to be delightful, you need to be more or less delighted yourself. And you seem like a glass, you take your philosophy seriously, which is a glass full kind of guy, so that I can pour that in other people. So thanks for helping to pour into my life, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more good chats we can have.
Of course. Thank you, Jonathan.
Hi, dude. Anything else you want to share before we close this off?
I better not, because otherwise more stuff will come out.
We're closing the door on this episode. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening. Feel free to share feedback. Feel free to share this with your community. And last but not least, Julian, thanks for being on the show.
May the force be with us all.
Nice. Dude, we did it.
Sick.
Once again, thanks for tuning into this episode. If you liked what you heard, if you felt inspired, if you found an idea you think will transform your life or make your life better, please share this with a man or someone in your life that you think would benefit. And some quick updates, exciting developments. The Circle Up book has now officially, contract has been signed with our publisher, so it is coming to the world November 1st. You will be able to pre-order the Circle Up book, where we talk about changing the way men talk, think, and feel about their mental health, on November 1st. So you can pre-order come October 1st. The book will be available November 1st for Men's Mental Health Month. And most importantly, every single dollar of profit for the book, every investment that I've made in it, every time investment of all of the grueling hours of sitting and writing and sitting and editing and sitting towards bringing it to the world will be donated to my favorite charity in the world. I feel like I owe them big time. They were so important in my development as a leader, as a communicator, understanding my own mental health, and then being able to share that with the world. So if you like this episode of the podcast, follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, share it with a friend, and then additionally, the Circle Up book is coming to the world, available for pre-orders October 1st, available for distribution November 1st, and every single dollar of profit will be going to fundraise money for youth mental health education and my favorite charity in the world, jack.org. I love you. Thanks for tuning in. And if you got to see this over video, you're welcome for the close-up of my face. If it's just audio, then y'all need to check out the video every once in a while. Sending love from Bradford, Canada. Until next time.